Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Edita Gruberova's farewell concert to the Deutsche Oper Berlin with conductor Peter Valentovich, and together they performed works composed by Bellini, Rossini, Donizetti, Saint-Saëns, Thomas, Johann Strauss, Giacomo Meyerbeer, and Giacomo Puccini. Now, I was very excited to catch this particular concert because, as a longtime follower of Edita Gruberova's, I knew this was an event I could not afford to miss. And for that, I was extremely euphoric to have caught it, and I did not regret any single moment whatsoever. But before I get on to what I thought about Edita Gruberova's singing, I would like to have a few words of how Peter Valentovich led the orchestra of the Deutsche Oper Berlin, especially when it came to the orchestral works in the forms of overtures and even some of the symphonies in general. I have to say that Maestro Valentovich really knew how to bring out such pizzazz and a lot of energy to this particular orchestra, especially evidenced in the overtures to Barbiere di Siviglia, La Gazza Ladra, Roberto de Vereux, and even Meyerbeer's ballet number found in Le Prophète, the Furioso Polka composed by Johann Strauss, and especially when he accompanied Edita Gruberova in her arias. Sure, there were times that he and Madame Gruberova didn't really sync too well together, but in spite of all that, he managed to keep on going and keep persevering throughout the evening. And as a bit of a fanboy moment, I even had his autograph and a picture of him, and he seemed to be a down-to-earth and fine gentleman who managed to do a fine job with leading the orchestra of the Deutsche Oper Berlin, and for that, I salute him for all of his efforts. Now we go to the main reason why I came to this particular concert, and that was, of course, to see Edita Gruberova, who made her Deutsche Oper Berlin debut in 1980 as Lucia Ashton from Donizetti's Lucia di Lammermoor. It's safe to say that a lot of the European audiences have admired Madame Gruberova for everything she contributed into the world of bel canto. And whether she be well known in the likes of Lucia Ashton or the Donizetti Queens, or even her beginnings as Rosina back in 1968 at Banska Bystrica, and many other roles for a coloratura soprano, there was no doubt that she has definitely made her mark in one of the many places which she has performed all of these great roles, whether they be in staged versions or concert versions. This overall concert is very much a microcosmos of everything Signora Gruberova has accomplished, from the lyric coloratura soprano roles and even comedic soprano roles of Rosina and Adele from Barbiere di Siviglia and Die Fledermaus respectively, in terms of her arias Una voce poco fa, and Adele's two arias Mein Herr Marquis and Spiel ich die Unschuld vom Lande, and even her rendition of Johann Strauss's Frühlingsstimmen's Walzer. She definitely did not forget her roots as a lyric coloratura soprano who once upon a time specialized in singing all of these stratospheric high notes, which unfortunately today some of them are not really as present, like the high Fs or even the Gs. However, it's safe to say that she does sing a lot of the E flats and the high E's and the D's and the C's and D flats. And one cannot also deny her contributions to the more serious bel canto works, whether they be Beatrice di Tenda or La Straniera, or even that of Ophelia from Ambroise Thomas' Hamlet, and even her encore number, which was Ancora un passo from Puccini's Madama Butterfly, which is also a recent encore number which she has done not only here in Berlin, but other parts of Europe. As I stated before, this concert is a microcosmos of everything that Frau Gruberova has done. From her beginnings as a lyric coloratura soprano who specialized in all of those stratospheric high notes, especially the likes of Stebrinetta, Adele, and Rosina, to her more serious roles found in the bel canto repertoire, those being the Donizetti Queens, Beatrice di Tenda, Alaida from La Straniera, and even Norma, to some of her encore numbers, those being some of the spinto soprano arias, which although she did not sing on stage, she basically did those as encore numbers, and even her occasional ventures into operetta. And from what Madame Gruberova did tonight, she definitely kept her voice intact with such abandon. She continued to let out those high notes with such clarion declamation that I was completely gobsmacked in terms of everything she did. And yes, even though she is in her 70s, she did not show any fatigue whatsoever, and she was rather meticulous as to where she had to sing certain notes softly, complete with pianissimo, and where she had to keep the passaggio intact, and where she had to let out those high notes with such declamation. However, there were also some undeniable vocal caveats to her performance, which in turn have affected the overall quality in which she has accomplished these days, and probably even back then. The first one definitely has to be that her chest notes, and I'm pretty sure that she is also quite infamous for this, are hollow, unsupported, forced, and they don't really have that fullness that is really required in terms of singing all of those low and rich notes. There were also times that her high notes sounded rather screechy on some occasions, even though there were some clarion ones to be found on some occasions. And I cannot forget that at times her mannerisms really take over the overall quality of her singing. And there are times that those mannerisms can be unintentionally hilarious at best and forced at worst. And I should also not forget about the occasionally sloppy coloratura, probably due to the fact that she has been singing all of these difficult coloratura soprano arias and roles for many years, that it continues to take a toll on her overall voice. So these were definitely caveats that I could never overlook. However, if I were to take all of those flaws away, I still have to say that Signora Gruberova still manages to be very dedicated as a singer. She continues to show a lot of stamina and guts, and she is very much open to all of these challenges, which she gladly accepted with open arms. So for that, I definitely have to give her mad props for everything she continues to do as a singing actress, and for someone who knows how to entertain an audience and keep them glued to their seats until the very end. Sure, there are times that some of the roles she does and even some of the arias she performs are an acquired taste, especially the more serious bel canto roles and arias. However, I still have to give her mad props in terms of her overall dedication, her gutsy nature in order to really get to the meat of those arias, her love of entertaining an audience, and her overall passion as a singer, even though she's naturally a lyric coloratura soprano. I cannot go wrong with anything Edita Gruberova does. Sure, she is a pretty flawed singer, but she definitely knew how to use certain things to her advantage, and for that, we, the audience, continue to be rather invested in her, even though she can be an acquired taste. And yes, I also have another fanboy moment in which I ended up having a picture and Edita Gruberova's autograph, and I was really happy that it went well, and I was just completely euphoric because I knew from the bottom of my heart that her concert and this particular experience was one I will continue to reminisce. So overall, on behalf of the audience of the Deutsche Oper Berlin, we will definitely miss Madame Gruberova for everything she accomplished, whether they be her roles on stage performances like Lucia de Lammermoor, or even her concert performances like Lucrezia Borgia, Norma, and even La Straniera, to name a few. We cannot go wrong with someone as dedicated, entertaining, and charismatic as Signora Gruberova. So, on behalf of Gruberova's Berliner fans, I wish you a lot of love, continuous dedication, abundance, and a lot of charisma in everything you do. Whether you give out master classes, please continue to be the inspiration and the shining star that you are to all of our future singers. And for those of you who caught this particular concert headlined by Edita Gruberova and Petar Valentovic, what'd you think of it? Do you feel like Edita Gruberova continued to give the goods as a singer in spite of her being an acquired taste? Do you feel like there was an aria that she did particularly well? And in terms of Petar Valentovic, did you feel like he led the orchestra of the Deutsche Oper Berlin superbly? Or is there something that you were not really a fan of? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in for another review. So until then, happy holidays, everybody!